I want to tell you a story about the time when a Hindu man came to save me. That's right, a very noble Hindu man came to save me. It was 2008. I was at this missions hospital compound in Kuala Lumpur, India. We were very busy with our HIV/AIDS projects, the Invisible Orphanage project, as well as taking care of these HIV/AIDS infected and affected sick people who were coming to the hospital. The hospital was very old. It was more than 100 years old and very rundown, needed a lot of renovation. But little by little, one room at a time, we renovated the rooms, fixed them up for these patients. During this time, Kuala Lumpur Church Council, a Presbyterian church council in Kuala Lumpur, who were the managers of that property, Missions Hospital, came to us and we were discussing about whether our organization for HIV/AIDS would take over the whole management of the Missions Hospital. During this time, there were new elections happening. Every 2 years, there is an election with the Presbyterian Church Council. And a very crooked man came to power. At that time, I hope he has changed. And if not, I pray that he changes before he meets his maker, because this man was very crooked, was not a Christian, was called a doctor and a pastor, but he was neither. He was just there to mint money, a very corrupt man, selling missions properties for his own gain, and using all kinds of means, the gangs or even Hindu people, to achieve his purpose. And he had become a council member in Kuala Lumpur. He was, before in Miraj, he was a council member there of the Kuala Lumpur Church Council. But now he had come over to Kuala Lumpur because he wanted to sell off properties, missions properties, in the Kuala Lumpur district that were managed by the Presbyterian Church Council, given by the missionaries in the past. This man, I won't reveal his name, and God help this man if he has not repented, but this man was eyeing the missions hospital in Kuala Lumpur because it was at a prime location. The land price was very, very high, and technically, legally, you can't sell that land, but they find ways to do that, right? Loopholes, breaking the laws and the rules. So this man was trying to sell this missions hospital to a Bombay businessman and other interested parties who would pay a lot of money, and he would take a chunk of that money, of course, just distribute to other people who would help him to accomplish this task. But by law, you couldn't sell missions properties in India. That's how the missionaries actually made it. You can lease it out, but you can't sell it. But this man found ways and have been doing that for many years in other districts. He came to power through an election, and he was opposed to the idea of us managing the hospital because we wouldn't give him any money. There would be no profit for him. We would give money to the Kuala Lumpur Church Council, but not to him privately or personally at all. So he was very opposed to the idea that we would actually, the HIV/AIDS organization, would take over the management of the missions hospital. So during this time, there were some tussles going on and discussions. There were some good people at the Kuala Lumpur Church Council, the Presbyterian Council, was wanting to help us, who wanted to see missions work thrive and grow. But this one crooked man, with some others, have joined together to oppose this idea of us running the hospital. Of course, running the hospital itself was not a joy decision. The hospital was so old and run down that we would have to spend a lot of money to renovate it and keep it up to standards. At the same time, they were demanding rent money from us. But we were willing, just because we felt this missions hospital has a very old, beautiful heritage from missionaries, and it needed to be revived. The spirit of the missionaries needed to be revived to serve and love the people that are sick and dying in that region. So that was the only reason for us to even think about managing that hospital, because it would be a big sacrifice for us and a big fight. But this crooked man didn't want us to take over management of the hospital, so he came up with this very crooked idea. He filed charges against us, against me personally, at a Shaopuri police station. And he had connections and people that he knew. So just false allegations that we were converting people, these poor HIV/AIDS dying people. We were converting these Hindus to Christians, which was illegal at the time and was a very political issue. So he brought that up and filed charges at the Shaopuri police station. I remember going there for the first time. Many times I went afterwards. For the first time, I was called, and I knew this was going to be a very big fight, spiritual fight. So we had closed down the hospital for a few days, asked the people to pray, gather at the chapel, and just pray, taking turns praying all day. I went to the Shaopuri police station. I met with the inspector. Just to see him took a few hours, and that's how they drain your energy, right? And then when I saw him, he was very strict. He was very cunning. It was, oh, I know you're doing a good work, but some people have lodged a charge against you that you're converting people to Christianity, and this is not right. This is a very political issue. It's illegal, and it would be punishable not only by fine but imprisonment. And he was pressuring me basically to give him money, to give him a lot of money to bail myself out, and I was not willing. I came out of the hospital. I called some people, pastor friends in that region and the churches, but they all replied. None of them came. They all replied and said, "Oh, we're praying for you. Don't worry," but none of them were willing to come and help. So this was continuing for a few days, and I was making visits to the police station, and nothing was progressing. Things were turning worse, actually, against us. At this time, I had known a very noble businessman, a Hindu businessman in that Shaopuri lane. He was having a bolts and nuts hardware store, a very old man, but he was very known, reputable man in that community. So for some reason, I went to visit him. It was not because of the police work. I had to visit him, and I sat down and had some tea. He asked me how I was doing. I said, "Oh, I have this big problem at the Shaopuli police station. They're accusing me of all and this, that, but it's all a game." And he was suddenly silent. He looked at me and said, "What? What's happening?" I said, "This is happening." Because he knew the work that we were doing at the Missions Hospital, our HIV/AIDS works, and he was very appreciative of the work that we've come from outside of the country just to help the people of Kuala Lumpur. So he looked at me and said, "Come, let's go." He immediately got up, closed his shop, closed the shutters, locked it. We went into the car, and I thought he was going to take me to Shaopuri police station, but he didn't. He took me to the police commissioner's office in Kuala Lumpur, which is the head of police of the whole Kuala Lumpur district, head of all the police stations. And I was shocked. It was the first time I went there, and people don't just go there. You can't meet the police commissioner just going. People sometimes do that and stay for days to meet, all day waiting to meet with the police commissioner. You need connections, you need to give money, all that. So I went first time to this police commissioner's office, and as soon as we went there were a lot of people waiting in the lobby. I waited, I think, about 5-10 minutes, and the secretary came out of the commissioner's office and asked us. He called this man, uncle, asked us to come into the commissioner's office. There were other people waiting for many, many hours before we came there, but he called us first. So we went inside and sat down. A very sharp, intelligent man, spoke good English, but didn't speak English to me. Spoke in Marathi to this noble Hindu businessman. And he was saying, how are you? What's going on? And then the businessman was saying, "Oh, this person Brother David, he's working for the HIV's community. He's from Korea and he's been taking over the hospital, renovating, and he's doing all he can. But there's some people who are giving some trouble. Just a brief discussion. He didn't ask me any questions, this police commissioner. He just asked this person, this Hindu businessman, what police station? And he said, Shaopuri police station. He turned to his phones. This is 2008. So there were a lot of phones from different police stations. He picked up the phone and says, in Marathi, because I understood it, get me Shaopuri police station. And he was holding it. And suddenly the inspector of the police station was on the phone. I could hear the voice. I didn't know what he was talking about on the other side. But this man says, so I have this man in my office talking with me. So tell me what's going on. So he was listening carefully as the inspector of Shaopuri police station was explaining to the police commissioner what had happened with my case. He said, yeah, okay. And then he just simply said, I understood in Marathi, just take care of it. Just take care of it. And then he hung up the phone. It was this old rotary phone that's hard to see. And then he just said a few words to the businessman, and we got up and left. So I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. And the businessman turned to me as we were leaving and said, don't worry, it's handled. So I thought, that's very interesting. I got a call from Shaopuri police station for me to come and visit again. So I said goodbye to the uncle, thanked him for his kind gesture, and went to the Shaopuri police station. And the inspector called me right in and sat me down, and his whole posture, his whole language had changed. He says, you see, this people, I know they're very corrupt. They do this all the time. So he was changing his narrative. And he simply said, why don't you just write up in a piece of paper what you are doing and your stance, because I have to, file this report. So I told him, I'm doing this kind of work. I'm not forcefully converting any Hindus to Christianity. And I wrote it and gave it to him. And that was the end of the story. No more calls from the police station. No more issues. In fact, this corrupt man from the Kuala Lumpur Church Council, he changed his mind somehow. Of course he had to, because now he knew, oh, we can't kick this man out. But he didn't know what was going on. The whole thing was just because I had this relationship with a very noble Hindu businessman at the Shaopuri Lane. Of all the people that I've called, asked for help and prayer, this man came right away and took me to the police commissioner's office in Kuala Lumpur. I came to know that his nephew was the secretary of the police commissioner. That's how we got in. In India, you have to have money or you have to know people, and even both sometimes. And because of that protection of this man's word and his nobility and his reputation, our work was not stopped. We were not kicked out of the hospital. In fact, this corrupt man at the Kuala Lumpur Church Council had to change his stance and reluctantly lease us the hospital so we could expand the work there and build up the missions hospital as before. So this is my story about how God surprisingly, unexpectedly used a Hindu man to save us that day. He can do anything. God will use anything and anywhere and anybody to make sure that nobody takes away your calling and your destiny in Christ. So don't be discouraged when the enemy uses corrupt people, wicked people, just deceit people, sometimes to trouble you, to trouble the work of the ministry. Don't be discouraged, because God has ways. He will even use a Hindu man to validate your Christian work and your Christian stance in God. Have faith in God. God bless you. Shalom. Basem. Yeshua Mashiach. Shalom.